Action from the Attorney General now, Eric Holder. Moments ago on the use of drones inside the United States now. Capitol Hill hearing that did take place today. Holder says he has no intention of allowing drone strikes here at home. From minutes ago, watch.
Said in the letter was that the government has no intention to carry out any drone strikes in the United States. It's hard for me to imagine a situation in which that would occur. We have within the United States the ability to use our law enforcement capacity. And as I laid out in a speech that I gave at Northwestern University with regard to the use of these kinds of lethal forces, one of the critical things was that the possibility, the feasibility of capture was difficult in foreign lands, Afghanistan, Pakistan, other parts of the Middle East. That is not the same thing here in the United States, where the possibility of capture is obviously enhanced. And as a result, the use of drones is, from my perspective, something that is entirely hypothetical.
So there is more to this. I want to talk to retired Captain Chuck Nash now, former U.S. Navy captain, Fox News military analyst. Does that settle it there, Captain?
Well, Bill, I come from a way of life in the military where you don't buy weapons that you don't intend to use. Why would you? And if you look at what the Department of Homeland Security has been purchasing over the last year, it comes out to like 1.6 billion rounds of ammunition, more than 7,000 fully automatic assault weapons, 2,700 MRAP type vehicles, and now drones. Those are instruments of war. Department of Homeland Security's, who are they going to fight a war against?
How do you answer that?
I don't know. That's a good question. But, you know, a bunch of people up here ought to be asking more questions about this. Why do they need all of that stuff?
It seems to be substantial, too. Listen, Rand Paul, the Republican from Kentucky, he's been really after this story, trying to get answers from the Attorney General. Until those comments, it just happened in a hearing. All we had was a pretty long letter, long statement, I should say, about the possibility. And he referred again to being unlikely to occur, entirely hypothetical. Sure. Now, what he suggested was that if you had a catastrophic attack, such as September 11th at Pearl Harbor, perhaps that would be the hypothetical that would enter into this equation.
Yeah, I've got his letter.
How are you to interpret that, or how do you read that letter, Captain?
Well, I will read that line to you, if I may, because he says, for example, the president could conceivably have no choice but to authorize the military to use such force, if necessary, to protect the homeland in the circumstances of a catastrophic attack like the ones December 7th, 1941, September 11th, 2001. Were such an emergency to arise, I would examine the particular facts and circumstances before advising the president on the scope of his authority. Those were both acts of war, and they were surprise attacks. That's not when you then go in and start advising and doing things.
So hang on, what do you take from that then? What is your interpretation of that?
This is completely a muddled letter. As in military terms, if this was my commander's intent, I have no idea what he's talking about. It's conflicting, it's muddled. Who's the enemy? Terrorists. You know, you have true weapons of war here that are being purchased. This is not law enforcement equipment. So what's going on? And I think Senator Paul is fully within his rights as a member of the Congress to ask these questions.
We've reached out to the senator, and we'll see when we get a chance to get him back on the air, maybe even tomorrow. But what we just heard from him in that statement and that hearing is similar to what he told Senator Paul, arguing that law enforcement is best suited to resolve any sort of conflict in this country. That would seem to suggest that he puts the police, the FBI first, right?
Absolutely. And he is the chief law enforcement officer in the United States, and the FBI works for him in the Department of Justice.
And based on that comment, then it would seem to suggest that drones are off the table. But you apparently are not so convinced of that based on what I hear from you.
If they're off the table, why buy them? I go back to my original statement. I come from a way of life where you don't buy weapons that you don't intend to use.
A fair point. We're going to reach out to Rand Paul and we'll get his reaction to it. Captain, thank you. Much appreciate your insight on that, Captain Nash. Thanks.